6:30, so I will call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum, and the agenda was properly posted, so we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So at this time, I'd like to ask for everyone to stand and have a moment of silence to honor the individuals, family, and friends and neighbors that were affected by last week's car pedestrian accident. We are now at the public's opportunity to speak. We ask that you state your name, your address, and limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If you go over that, I'll first raise my hand and then I'll ask you to wrap up your comments. We will start with individuals in the room, starting with those that filled out the wish to speak forms and anyone else who has comments, and then we'll move to anyone who's on Zoom for public comments. So the first one I have here is Abby McDowell.
Good evening. My name is Abby McDowell. I'm the homeowner at 208 Heather Drive. If you look up the definition of the word election in the dictionary, you'll find it described as a formal and organized choice by vote of a person for political office or other position. Just over a month ago, the Village of Cottage Grove held its spring election, resulting in the selection of a new village president. This outcome has left a vacancy on the Board of Trustees. Since no additional election is being held to fill this open trustee seat, the logical and democratic approach would to be appoint the candidate who received the highest number of votes. The people of Cottage Grove had made their voices heard, and with 1,474 votes, that candidate is Mark Spejos. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Mandy. You can give your comment now.
So I'm Mandy Welk. You want my address too? 309 Klein Street, Deerfield. Good evening. I am aimed to be brief while conveying the importance of this project. Having had a young sister with autism who used a wheelchair, I witnessed firsthand the difficulties she faced in participating in activities that we all sometimes take for granted. This experience was deeply troubling. In 1993, our family joined forces with the local community to create the world's largest accessible playground at the time, which is still there today in Janesville, Wisconsin. Tragically, my sister passed away during surgery that same year, denying her the chance to experience this playground. During the Lions Care Cruise at Bakken Park in May of 2024, I saw a young boy with a walker attempting to access the current playground, but struggling to do so. His mother was forced to step in, and due to safety concerns, this incident reaffirmed my commitment to building a playground that welcomes all children. Ensuring that every child has access to recreational facilities is crucial. I looked over at Greg that day and I said, I have to make sure this never happens again. In 2018, a young boy named Walter entered my life, filling a void that existed since my sister's passing. Walter was among the first children to join the Miracle League the first year. Approximately 60 kids participated in baseball, growing to over 300 children 5 years later. These kids never thought they'd play baseball. Now they have the opportunity. This is precisely why this playground holds such an importance to me. It's disheartening that these remarkable children can play baseball but cannot access a playground. I can elaborate intensely on this importance and sentimental value this holds. My sister's memory drives my ongoing efforts to promote inclusive playgrounds.
Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak? All right, is there anyone on Zoom? So we'll move on to discussing and consider the minutes of the village board meeting on April 21st, 2025. There's a PDF linked in the agenda with those minutes.
Murphy would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second? All right, motion by Heidi, second by Renee. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Moving on to presentations from the board, we have the swearing-in ceremony for several police officers and introduction of several support specialists. So I'll turn it over to Lisa and to Chief.
Good evening. I have 4 officers that will take a ceremonial oath, and then I have 2 support personnel that I'll also introduce to the board. So at this time, I'm going to call up Officer Evan Tapp.
I'll give you that. If you can raise your right hand for me. And you can repeat after me. I, Evan R. Tapp,
I, Evan R. Tapp,
who has been appointed to the office of police officer
who has been appointed to the office of police officer
with the village of Cottage Grove, Dane County, Wisconsin,
with the village of Cottage Grove, Dane County, Wisconsin,
pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 62.13, paren 3,
pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 62.13, paren 3,
solely swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge my duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge my duties as police officer to the best of my ability.
All right. I can get you to sign that for me, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will bring them all 4 up at the end for you. If I could now have Officer Ethan Stufflebeam please step forward.
All right. I, Ethan Stufflebeam,
I, Ethan Stufflebeam,
who has been appointed to the office of police officer
who has been appointed to the office of police officer
with the village of Cottage Grove, Dane County, Wisconsin,
with the village of Cottage Grove, Dane County, Wisconsin,
pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 62.13, paren 3,
pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 62.13, paren 3,
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge my duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge my duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
All right. I can get your signature. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would ask that Officer Jacob Newman please step forward.
All right, here we go. I, Jacob C. Newman,
I, Jacob C. Newman,
who has been appointed to the office of police officer with the village of Cottage Grove, Dane County, Wisconsin,
who has been appointed to the office of police officer with the village of Cottage Grove, Dane County, Wisconsin,
pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 62.13, paren 3,
pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 62.13, paren 3,
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge my duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer to the best of my abilities.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could have Officer Crystal Brindle please step forward.
I, Crystal Brindle,
I, Crystal Brindle,
who has been appointed to the office of police officer with the Village of Cottage Grove, Dane County, Wisconsin,
who has been appointed to the office of police officer with the Village of Cottage Grove, Dane County, Wisconsin,
pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 62.13, paren 3,
pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 62.13, parent 3,
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge my duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge my duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
All right. Awesome, thank you.
Now, before I have those four return, I'm going to introduce Police Specialist Claire Laban. If she could please step forward. She came to our agency in the first quarter of this year as support for not only the administrative side of the police department, but also as assisting with the clerk of courts. So she's been a great addition to the agency in helping operations work efficiently. So this is Claire. And one more introduction, Shannon Colwyn is a volunteer chaplain with our agency. I'll have him step forward. He joins Chaplain Meng, who's been with our agency for the last couple of years. So again, another resource not only for our agency, but for the community in those times that we need that assistance. So thank you very much for joining our agency. If I could have all 6 of you please step forward. You will see all their faces out in patrol and or in the office on a regular basis. So congratulations to all of you. You're dismissed. Thank you.
All right. So we'll move on to unfinished business, discuss and consider Resolution 2025-08. There is the authorizing resolution linked in the agenda, and then Greg has also given the board members the PowerPoints that he's going to present now. So I'll turn it over to Cameron first, or Greg.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap what brought us here today. So the 2024 or 2025 Series A promissory notes went out to bid this morning at 10:30. So in the preliminary resolution was a specific par value with an estimated interest rate. Greg is here to present the result of the bid for your consideration tonight.
Thanks, Cameron. Good evening. A copy of the pre-sale report was left at your table, and then I'm sharing a copy of it online. First, the executive summary. So there were 5 bids that were received on the notes this morning. The winning bid was submitted by Baird out of Milwaukee. The final true interest cost came in at 3.5837%. So interest rates have definitely come down since some of the market volatility that was in place at the beginning of April. You recall that when we started this process, we had adopted a parameters resolution that originally had set a not to exceed true interest cost of a 3.64%. So while that was no longer in place for the sale, it did come in under that maximum TIC, which is positive. I'll walk through the financial analysis that just kind of shows the tax impact. So this debt is going to be repaid by a variety of revenue sources, the majority of which is the debt service levy. So some of the equipment purchases were amortized over a shorter period for 5 years. Some of the projects, the rest were amortized over 10 years. So you'll see the total principal and interest net P&I for the notes came in at $3,938,809. That's $32,364 less than the estimate we presented back in March, and then when we updated it following the market volatility, it came in about $124,786 less than that estimate. So definitely the decision to postpone the sale in early April proved beneficial today as rates really have come back down closer to where we saw things heading into the beginning of April. In terms of the tax impact analysis, we show these proposed notes, your existing debt, and then future 2026 through 2030 projects based on the current version of the capital improvement plan that we update as that gets updated annually or at other times. So you'll see the debt service levy with these notes is projected to increase about $845,000 from 2025 to 2026, which was right in line with our pre-sale estimate. So on your agenda is the resolution to award the sale. Just want to again note that the final borrowing amount came in a little less than the pre-sale estimate. So the final amount in the resolution is the $3,280,000, reflecting the final transactional costs. So that's the overview of the sale. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Open the floor to board members who have questions. If not, this is a discuss and consider.
This is Heidi. I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-08, resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation promissory note as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. There's a motion by Heidi, a second by Paula. Any more discussion?
Just a quick question. Do we need to, because the discuss and consider said 3.3, do we need to define that it's 3.280 and change that in the resolution?
The resolution was updated after the sale. It
Okay.
wasn't in the packet that way, but we do have the updated one
Okay.
with that information.
Okay, perfect.
No more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Moving on to discuss and consider the interview process for the Open Village trustee position. I wanted to bring this to the village board so that we are aligned on the process that we'll have for the May 19th meeting in 2 weeks. So we decided at the last meeting that we would accept applications up until May 14th at 5 p.m. So I'm asking the board to kind of make sure that we're standardized on this process moving forward. My suggestion is that we ask all candidates, bring them in, have a panel up front, ask them the standard name, age, occupation, how long have you lived here, what's your motivation for applying, and then board members could submit one question to Lisa by that Wednesday at the May 14th at noon, so that we have the 6 questions that we would ask all board members. We could randomize the order moving forward, but that would be kind of the process. And that way everyone, we're not here all night, it's a little bit more efficient. 6 questions.
So just one question?
One question per board member submitted, and Lisa
Because the last time it was kind of open. So I guess one question I would have, in terms of efficiency, would we be better off submitting, each trustee submitting a question to the candidates? They could respond, and we would have written responses, instead of kind of going through a limited Q&A.
I don't know if that would allow us to have more than one question and save time at the meeting.
Other board members?
I'm not sure. I hadn't thought about that. I guess my only thought would be if we ask them the question while we're here, they kind of have to answer it, whereas if we email them, there's a chance they could just not answer it. I guess that's my only thought at the moment.
I think the last 2 times it's been this, with the just what I just described is how it's been the last 2 appointments. My suggestion was just having trustees submit the question ahead of time to Lisa so that we had them ready and that we were a little bit more efficient with the 6 questions versus kind of going all night. And she could also then make sure that there weren't duplicate questions. We could have, at the end of those 6 questions, open it up for any additional questions that anyone has.
Okay, yeah, that was my concern. I mean, if we're gonna make a decision based on filling a spot, and there's obviously a lot of thoughts on this, to limit it to 6 questions seems a little narrow, I guess, in terms of trying to get answers to others.
Sure.
Right, okay.
And we opened it up to additional questions last time, because I asked one that I hadn't thought of before in the meeting, so.
I just wanted to make sure we're aligned so that we have some structure moving forward.
And as far as the voting goes, last time, I don't know how many we're gonna have. We've gotten 2 so far. But the way we did it last time was we just went down and went to each person to see who they would vote for, and that person got the first motion. So it's basically voting to see who gets the first motion. That's what we did last time. I don't know, is that still cool with people?
It just seemed a little odd to me that we just wouldn't make a motion and vote on it.
Well, the concern I had last time was that it would give everybody an equal chance to have it, give everyone an equal chance instead of just possibly the first person that gets a motion is the person that gets in. Which is why we voted around to see who would get the first motion first.
And Rick, I don't know if you have anything, I don't want to put you on the spot, if anything to add to the conversation.
I'm just trying to think of how to address like Chris's thought about it. I mean, ultimately it's just like any other decision of the village board. There's a motion and second. If you wanted to, I guess, randomize, you could have somebody make the first motion. I guess the only thing is, as the last time, the voting has to be open, so we can't do like secret ballots or anything like that. So every vote and discussion, that's got to be an open session.
I guess to sort of clarify that is my view when looking at this is the motion to approve someone as a trustee is, would this person make a good trustee? And you might vote yes on 4 or 5 candidates, but the person who gets the first shot is the one that gets in, which is why last time we did the vote thing. If that makes sense. I don't know if I'm just babbling or what.
I think that makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Can we go back just a second to the questions? So we submit our question to Lisa by noon on the 14th, and then do you foresee the list of questions being sent to each candidate? I just want to make sure there's clear guidance. So if the candidates should have the questions in advance, or is this just to compile so we know what questions to ask at the meeting?
My thought was to have the questions compiled so that we were organized for that first meeting. I think there is value to having them printed out and given to the candidate at the interview. I know that some people are, it does help in an interview process to have those written out. And there's a lot of tips and tricks and techniques that you can do,
but written out at the meeting, not
not
sent
ahead
to
of
them
time.
in advance.
Right, I guess that was the
Yeah.
question. So you're saying that it would be not disclose the questions until the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
My other thought on that was, can we submit 2 questions just in case there's an overlap? Like, this is our number 1 question. I don't want to give you like 1,000 questions to go through, but
I had the same question.
yeah, I just don't want in case there's a duplicate.
Mm-hmm. If everyone's okay with
Just
that.
2.
2.
Not
No
10.
more than 2. A primary
Yeah.
and a secondary. How about that? Okay. This is on the agenda as a discuss and consider.
Yeah, so I guess I don't know how we would make a motion of this, but
Okay.
it seems like there's consensus on the process. So as long as there aren't any.
We have enough feedback to move
Mhm.
forward.
Mhm.
Okay. So do we don't need a motion? Okay.
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right, then we will move on to New business. So this is discuss and consider reestablishing the Joint Village Town Emergency Government Committee. There is a memo from Trustee Severson with attachments in the packets. And if it's okay with her, we'll turn it over to Paula and you can introduce it.
Thank you. So this is something that is very important to me, and that's why I brought it up at the very first meeting. So many years ago, we shared a joint emergency government committee with the town of Cottage Grove. And I kind of outline the history of that, how the committee was set up. And for the people in the audience or on Zoom, we had a committee made up of 2 members from the town, 2 from the village. And we also included representatives from Cottage Grove Fire, Police, EMS, Hydrate, El Civia, and the Monona Grove School District. So we met monthly, and we really worked on kind of our standard emergency operations, our manual, our plan. We did a lot of, what I say is like we did plan, prepare, and practice. So we walked through a lot of the possible emergencies that could happen in Cottage Grove. We did tabletop exercises. We actually did in-person exercises. And it was very helpful to do that pre-planning. Where this comes into play, and us as, village board members, we don't necessarily have a direct role when we have an emergency in Cottage Grove. But we can act in a supporting role to our first responders. And so at the time we had the Emergency Government Committee, I was the chairperson, and we only activated our EOC once. And that was actually when Diane Wiedenbeck was president, and we made the call together, she and I, to activate the EOC and open the Emergency Services Building during a cold spell as a warming shelter. Other than that, we were just kind of on standby. Part of my background and why I wanted to be on this committee in the past and want to reestablish it again comes from my personal experience. So in many ways, there have been major incidents that I have responded to personally. So for instance, the Stoughton tornado in 2005, I believe that was. My husband responded with Cottage Grove Fire, and I'd say an hour and a half into the incident, I received a call from him saying, can you go with some others, bring us food and Gatorade, we're gonna be out here doing search and rescue. And so we did that, and that was an eye-opening experience. Driving in over down power lines and seeing the devastation firsthand is an image that has stuck with me, and that's why I believe the planning that we can do ahead of time can help our first responders quicken the response and be in supporting roles. So I think there's benefits to this. One of the things that we did as an emergency government committee was ICS training. And I believe Matt has ICS training. I'm not sure if any of the other village staff, do you have? Okay, yep, it's good to do, and I have it. And so it's just understanding the framework so that if we have a tornado, let's say that rips through the town and the village, we can provide support in terms of any sort of resources, record keeping, that sort of thing. Why to do it with the town? Because quite frankly, any sort of natural disaster or major incident is really going to affect both municipalities. And since we share 2 joint services together, I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of bring everybody to the table together. It also lessens the amount on particularly our shared services. So it's not like they have to come to village meeting and town meeting, they can just attend one meeting. We met monthly. This group could meet quarterly. I mean, really, it's kind of an open book. So some reasons, obviously, for coordination is, again, I think we have hazards, both in the village and the town, that if there were a major incident, they're going to affect both municipalities, so it's good to be on the same page. I think, obviously, any improved coordination between the 2 municipalities is great. Shared resources can be fiscally responsible, so if there's training that both boards want to do, I know that the town board has on their agenda for tonight ICS training, so they're thinking about those things, and potential for grant opportunities. So when there is multi-jurisdictional emergency preparedness, that could open the doors to some funding sources. So my recommendation, and I know it's 17 pages long, so I tried to provide you with kind of the background and the original ordinance and all the things so you'd have the information, would be to coordinate with the town board to see if there's interest. And I will say that I did speak at the April 7th board meeting under public appearances to just bring this topic up, that I was going to bring it up at the village board meeting. There were a lot of nodding heads. So I think we could get an agreement. And then obviously we just have to reestablish kind of our emergency government ordinance to kind of align with that. So that's the gist of it, and I'll yield to any questions anyone has.
Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I guess, so the last joint meeting was 2019. There isn't any background here as far as any dissolution or how it actually ended up kind of getting dissolved. I mean, what was kind of the driver? Why it doesn't exist?
I don't know.
Huh?
Oh.
So Heidi actually probably has the most
Yep.
institutional knowledge. Let
Sure.
Heidi go.
Sure. I was on the board at the time, and there were concerns that so every municipality is required to have an emergency response plan adopted. And I'm not sure what the inner workings of the committee as a joint, but the Village of Cottage Grove did not have an emergency plan adopted. And so at the time, it was decided to designate a director and develop a response plan for the Village of Cottage Grove because we were currently not following the state guidance that we should have an adopted plan. So the board at the time thought that was a risk to the village, although there were exercises going on. There was no formal adopted plan. So sometimes developing a plan jointly can be a challenge. I think that there probably is opportunity to do joint tabletop exercises, since we do share so many borders and with residences, right across the street from some of our neighbors. And so it might be worthwhile to have our emergency director come in and present a plan, have Matt come in and talk about the contents of the plan, and then maybe we can further discuss how we might be able to collaborate with our neighbors. But we also share with Deerfield, the town of Sun Prairie is a neighbor, so maybe it goes beyond. The school district, of course, is a member of our committee. But yeah, that was kind of the beginning of the village developing our own plan because we didn't have one adopted.
I believe, if memory serves me correct, we adopted the joint plan back my last time on the board in 2009. So I don't know where that got lost in translation, but
So we do have a full emergency preparedness plan.
Yes.
And the chapter 36 in our ordinances has been revised so that it shows that there's an emergency management committee that meets. I'd recommend, if the village board is interested in moving forward, kind of like Heidi said, I would maybe recommend having our team come and present to us and kind of tell us, what we do and what we do well, maybe if there is opportunity, and to really hear from a staff perspective, so that we can make decisions knowing, all the pieces of the puzzle. I don't know if other board members have other things to add. Renee?
What kind of feedback did you get from the town when you were at the meeting?
They nodded, right? You can't talk back during public appearances, but I've had subsequent conversations with them, and they seem to be interested. I've had a conversation with the assistant fire chief. I've not been able to get to all the chiefs yet, but there is an interest in that. I have read the emergency plan. I'm a little concerned that committee has not met for over a year. And so, part of emergency preparedness is really the rhythm of having and talking through those things and revising and, you know, and I did express interest in being on that committee since I do have that background. So I think it's something we should at least have a conversation about and make sure we're all on the same page, because honestly, we're going to need each other in case of a major incident happening. And I think that would also open the door to more conversation with the town and collaboration with them as well. I know that it can be challenging when you come to joint services, you know, getting multiple competing municipalities at the table, but I also think it's very important for the residents. So.
Other comments from committee members?
Thank you for taking that initiative. It's important to me too, but not only myself, but our voters. And as you stated, and Heidi stated too, we all have neighbors, we're integrated around the block, and so putting one step forward in the right direction and sharing some of these services and making things more financially viable.
So did you speak with our emergency government director for Cottage Grove about this?
I have not yet, no.
Okay, so yeah, I'm kind of thinking this is something that we really should pursue. I mean, I know, Heidi, you talk about these borders, but the town and the village share streets, houses side by side. I mean, there isn't anything closer than the town and the village, so I think this is really important. And again, the other boundaries are much further away in a lot of cases, but I'm kind of with you, Cindy, in the sense that we really need to kind of get feedback from our emergency service director. We need to get feedback from the town, but I don't know what the motion looks like to kind of tee up the next steps, but I'd be in favor of that.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a motion. I think, you know, having Lieutenant Wagner come and talk to us, and I mean, I've read through the plan, but having conversation is good. I just wanted to open the door to conversation and start talking about it as a group.
Okay. So I think I'm hearing we don't need to take action on this tonight, but we'd like future agenda item.
Yeah, it seems like it's just that it'll be on the agenda. We'll have staff talk about current roles and responsibilities, you know, what where the powers currently are that would be shifted to this committee are, and trying to get a sense of what we would have to change if that's the direction the board wants to go.
All right, so we will, no other comments on that. Move on to discuss and consider Resolution 2025-09, which is Recognition of Public Service Recognition Week. And if you take a look at the calendar, there is a lot of recognition that happens in May. I know it's our teachers, which is happening right now if you've got kids in the schools, but it's also, you know, all of our public service workers, which includes everyone who works here at the village. So thank you for all that you do on a daily basis to keep the village up and running.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-09 as presented.
And I would second that motion. I do have a comment, if I may, if that's all right. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all those people. We don't always, have the opportunity to thank those that are going out, that keep us safe, that keep our roadways safe, that keep our playgrounds safe. And so I'm glad that we're taking this moment to recognize staff, as it really is a commitment to making our community a great place. So I appreciate that. And they pitch in, no matter what. I saw Cameron at the e-waste event. I love that we have a good team that picks up wherever we need help. So thank you.
All right, there is a motion by Pete and a second by Heidi. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. So we'll move on to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. And first up is Parks, Rec, and Forestry Committee. So I'll turn this over to perhaps a combination of Heidi and Sean, and then we do have a presentation from the Miracle League.
Sure. Great. Thank you. So we met on April 24th, and we talked about the presentation that you'll hear shortly from the Miracle League. We also talked about Houston Park update. They're starting to move things around, took the playground out. So work began on the Houston Park playground update. We also have another item that we'll take action on. We started a pickleball event, Dinks and Drinks. There's a couple dates throughout the summer, so looking for approval to have to suspend the ordinance prohibiting alcohol at the park for the specific events. We do have a pickleball tournament coming up. So the pickleball courts are, of course, very popular. The tournaments, again, are only held at Bakken Park. So Community Park is available for all of the residents to enjoy playing at the pickleball courts there if there is an event. So we just wanted to keep those two different spots. So there's always a place for the community to play, even if there's a special event. Otherwise, that's kind of the meat of the meeting. So I would turn it over to Sean and then to welcome Bill Schultz from the Miracle League of Dane County.
Thanks, Heidi. Bill and Kyla, you want to come up, please? So we have Bill Schultz, everybody knows Bill, here from Miracle League this evening, and Kyla Raymond from Gerber Leisure Products. So they are going to start it out and talk about possibility of a playground opportunity at Bakken Park.
Can you hear me? Thanks for having us. Well, I don't want to assume that you all know what the Miracle League is, so I just wanted to open with saying that the Miracle League of Dane County is a baseball program for children with disabilities, ages 4 to 19. Yesterday, we handed out 320 uniforms for this coming season, so thanks to your support, this league has really done very well. But it's not just about baseball. The program brings life-changing moments and joy that will forever impact them. The Miracle League Playground Project is an extension of our program's vision, and it fits our purpose and mission for these children to feel included and accepted, be accepted for who they are and what they can do, be a participant, not a spectator, that's a big one, experience a sense of normalcy, laugh, enjoy life, and have fun, and never let any boundary define them. If you've ever been out near the park, you'll sometimes see children very hesitant that are not disabled to go into the playground, and once they get in there, their confidence just builds. Right now, the playground at Bakken Park does not allow these disabled children to experience what it has to offer. We want to change that through this project, which the Miracle League will raise the funds for, with your approval. Our vision is to make it an inclusive playground for all children. This is not a proposal to just work with disabled children. It's a proposal for all children. So what I'd like to do is just hand it over to Kyla, who will go through the kind of what it looks like.
If I can jump in first,
Yeah,
Bill.
sure.
When this whole started a year and a half ago or something like that, the first thing that we did is we reached out to the playground company that provided the current playground, Leathers, and asked them could we do any modifications to this to make it more accessible. The answer was basically no. We talked to the president of the company, and things just weren't designed that way. The only option they really had for us would to be standalone play throughout the playground area, and as we talked as a group, that's just not something that we really want. That does not encourage parallel play at all. So that got us away from being able to use the playground that we had, and that's where Kyla comes in.
Oh, I'm sorry, the microphone might not be on. Sorry, thank you.
First timer, These are some pictures of your current playground. As you can see, you do have some great components, and it is split between the two age groups, but you have separation here. There's not accessibility from the field where all the users are coming from, and you have to go all the way either around the splash pad or through this track to get here. And then anyone that could get, through here, you have these raised borders, so it's not flush with grade. It's not an easy entrance for everyone. And the main entrance actually has these cool gnomes that are placed in a way that a mobility device user couldn't even get in there. So we are keeping the existing entrance that has all the donors. We know that that's important to the community, and it's just really cool to have all of those tiles there. So we're starting to build off of that for the new playground. Again, keeping this board. And for the existing donors that you see all around the park for the components, we actually are incorporating them into a panel maze in the new playground that lists every single donor that's on that playground. With the design you're about to see, it goes, Jill Moore, who one of our representatives on the design team, Tracy, actually coached her. When she was younger, she is an inclusive play specialist, so before any of these products are put out onto the market available for use, she actually tests them out and gives her opinions of where to add extra handholds and support, things like that. And the main component on this design that you will see was one of those components that she had some major input into. So without further ado, I want to share a video of the new playground. Oh, you can't? Sorry about that. Oh my gosh.
You might have it on a different screen.
Yep. All right. There we go. Again, some great features on this design is that everything is going to be at grade. You don't have to go through any borders, boundaries to get into the play space. Everything has the port-in-place surfacing, which is a great accessible option for any mobility device users or even caretakers, grandparents that have canes, things like that. We are including components that don't require any transfer. Our WeGoRound, our sensory tunnel, and a ramp structure for the 2 to 5 age group. You can see there's the donor maze that I was talking about, and then we also have a 6 to 23 month structure that you just saw, and that's really great for age inclusivity because right now you see the 2 to 5, 5 to 12, but you don't really see that younger age, and a lot of families will have those kids at that age where they still want something to do. You also don't have that separation between the two play spaces by fence. So again, if a caretaker had both ages, they're able to access both play spaces very fast. That tower is a fully accessible tower via transfer that would allow a user to utilize this flex netting and belting to get all the way up to a 20-foot tower, or a 20-foot slide, which is one of the tallest slides available. There's different routes within. There's an easy, moderate way for those users that may not be confident to get through these holes that you see here. And also for those caretakers, parents that want to get up there, they have these great handholds and areas where you can grab onto so that you also feel confident going and grabbing your child if they get stuck up there. Yeah, and then again, great components that don't require any type of transfer, but still offer great play value for those able-bodied kids too, to play along, and tons of parallel play. Any questions on that?
Go ahead, Chris.
Costs? I'm sure you're wondering what something
I
like
was
this
gonna
costs.
ask the timeline.
The timeline?
Yeah.
So we are wanting to place an order by July 1st is what our manufacturer gives to get the equipment by the end of the year, where we would store it and bring it for installation either spring or summer, depending on when timelines kind of work out to install the playground. There is some custom, but again, everything would be delivered by the end of the year so that we're ready when the weather is ready for us. Cost for this is a turnkey is going to be about $1.5 million. The equipment, surfacing, and certified installation being about $1.35 million of that. So the rest would be the site prep, any new concrete, removing the playground and stuff like that.
And Bill, can maybe you talk a little bit about what the goals are for the Miracle League and fundraising over the next several months?
This is our second go-around at raising that kind of money. We have parents that probably 8 or 10 times a season will come up to me and say, our child can't utilize the playground. You can see kids going from the parking lot to the ball field and then back to the parking lot. So, you know, what we will do is we will, as we did with the first, the Cottage Grove Field, I made presentations to foundations in the area and corporations and individuals. Some of the foundations were just family foundations, not necessarily big ones, but they just were hooked by, you know, what we were doing with children. There are many foundations in Madison that that their purpose is children or youth development. So, and I made at least a presentation a week to service clubs or families or what have you, and it started grassroots, and we grew it from there. We did have to have some leading gifts, which we certainly got us over the top. One was with an anonymous couple that just heard about us and just loved what we were doing, and we've had a number of those through the first 4 seasons of the Miracle League. So we won't necessarily go, well, we will go necessarily back to those same people because they love what we're doing. But I'm going to be probably the main fundraiser of this, along with our staff and the parents of Miracle League. They've spread the word so well that I'm going to be calling upon them to do the same. Is that what you were looking for?
Right. And then maybe Cameron, you can speak a little bit to, you said it's a $1.5 million project.
Yeah.
Is there an ask from the village board, financial ask?
Yeah, the Miracle League is immediately putting in $125,000 for the project. And what we're asking the village to do is to make a matching donation of $125,000 to help us get started.
So if the question kind of is, what is the process from the village? So if this would want to be done by July 1st, what I would do is I'd come back to the board with a couple different options, should the board want to move in that direction, you know, including the $125,000 ask, potentially some questions about, you know, ongoing maintenance costs. You know, what is the village, after we accept the asset, going to be responsible for? I'm assuming there's some type of donor recognition. I don't know if there's going to be a board, or I didn't look at very closely at how we would make sure that donors at various values are being recognized, and just making sure all of those mechanics are weeded out. I don't know if you had an answer on that.
Just for the donor recognition, you saw those Digifuse panels kind of already in there. We can add those to our structures as freestanding ones. There's actually curved plates that can be put on the posts of our play boosters that would have the name of any donors.
Perfect.
Could we also offer up more bricks to be put in?
Yeah. We don't, yeah, we'd have to look into expanding that area. Yeah, for sure.
I have a few questions. this looks absolutely fantastic. Is it possible, and I'm a newbie, so the $150,000 from Amazon, could that be placed towards this?
So the most recent communication Matt sent to them is, I believe it was youth and technology was the restriction. I don't think they put any other restrictions on that, but it's something the board can certainly direct staff to explicitly ask that we could use the funds for that purpose.
My second question is parking. That's an issue around the area, so I don't know if that's been thought out, planned.
You want to answer that, Sean?
Yeah, there's no additional parking planned for what, other than what we currently have. We have
Okay.
we don't really have any space for any additional parking.
So that leads me to think maybe we need to do some planning, especially for those with challenges of mobility and limited parking.
It's, Aaron, how many stalls is that? I want to say it's around 130 stalls, and on a typical Miracle League night, parking lot's pretty full.
Right.
And there's a lot of folks that will park on Clark Street as well, and then kind of meander their way through. But if we need to look at more parking, sure.
And another question I have is the maintenance. That was lightly brought up, but who's going to be in charge and maintaining that after it's in place?
We would, village would.
The village?
Yes.
Yeah, so that, and Sean and I have talked about this on other parks, the product that they would put down is actually cheaper and easier to maintain than wood chips. However, you're talking about a fairly large play set, so it's something that I would want to get an understanding from this group on, what are the typical failures of equipment like that? Is there anything special that we're not used to dealing with in our current system?
I was thinking too of things like who's going to be walking around picking up garbage and mowing the lawn and, making sure that it continues to look nice and kept up.
Yeah, we do that every day.
Sean, can you give a little history of Bakken Park and when the original structure was put in, and how much lifespan is left, and if it's in the capital plan to be replaced in the next 10 years, or when you thought that would have to be happen, and why this is obviously there's a huge benefit here.
Yeah. It was built around 2009, a little bit before my time. I believe that was a fully fundraised project, about $450,000, I think is what the cost was. A lot of elbow grease and blood, sweat, and tears went into that. So what else did you ask?
Which I don't remember.
Lifespan.
Lifespan.
Yeah. So it's about a 15-year-old, 20-year, getting to be 20 years. That's about the lifespan that we typically look at as a 20 years for a playground. That one's in good shape. We haven't really had any maintenance issues there at all. So it is not currently in the capital plan for 10 years yet. So if we don't choose to go this route, we would have to look at that somewhere down the road, but not anytime in the near future.
But Sean, they're not mutually exclusive, meaning we have to maintain the existing structure that is now 16 years old, right?
Correct.
So do we have an idea what the replacement cost would be on that in the next 5 years if the life is 20?
The replacement cost to do basically what we did, I would say it's got to be close to $1 million, in today's dollars in comparison to what we, if we went the same size, same type of features, I think it would be close to that.
Seemed like it'd be more, but it'd be good to get a number so that we could kind of layer it in the plan and
Yeah, I can do
understand the
that.
big picture. Thank you.
Go ahead, Paula.
Trying to. So yeah, the other piece, like you said, the blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, we all built that. Like it was all volunteers, right? And now we would probably have it, constructed, right? Two questions. One is for features of this for kids that might have low vision or a visual impairment. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, so right now at the playground you have wood chips with a brown structure, and there's a lot of small steps, so it doesn't really give a great visibility. But what we have on the new playground is brighter colors and different colors when you're transferring or changing an elevation. And we're also doing kind of a brighter color scheme too for those that may be able to see some colors.
And then I was just gonna ask the rubberized, it would be just like the field where it drains and all of the things? Okay.
Yep, there's a aggregate base that gets put underneath this SBR layer, which is the fall protection. This is just the pretty color. And it is semi-permeable, so you're not gonna see that pooling, just like the other parks around here.
Thank you. I would just say, like, are you taking comments now, or like, are we still like in question?
Yeah, if there are other comments or questions for, about the project in general.
I had one comment, if I may.
Yeah.
Bill, can you explain the timeframe of when, would you need that 125,000 by July 1st, or would you need
Well,
it
here's the
later?
ideal. If we were able to get $300,000 by July 1st, then Kyla can put the order in. And then the next step is, I believe, end of the year is an additional 700,000 if we stay on track.
Yeah, those 30 days before it ships, it would be another 20% of the equipment cost, and then that final, 30%, so it's 20 down, 30 prior to shipping, and then 50, net 30 after it ships, which would be the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's just for the equipment though.
Correct.
That's
Yep.
not the, we don't have another bill until the thing is done.
Yep.
The equipment would be all paid for in here, then the other half of the expense wouldn't occur until the playground's completely done. So that could be the following July or August.
So where do those funds come from? So is that the fundraising? That's
Yes.
not an ask of the village?
No, only if you would be willing to donate the 125,000 as a match for us, it would get us going. We'd have 250 then, and when we can arrange for the rest to get the order started.
How soon can we look into the Amazon funds?
If the board directs us,
I can email them in 30 seconds.
yeah.
So
I guess
we'll just.
Can I,
if we are going the Amazon direction, I know they're asked for 125,000, but to make it cleaner, I would recommend asking the full 150,000 be part of that donation. That way we're not trying to figure out what to do with the other 25,000. Not that there aren't other needs, but I'm sure that would help go along with the costs.
And
can
they're not part of your capital campaign fundraising list that we would be
Amazon?
yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, coincidentally, I met with the representative from Amazon on Friday
Okay.
to introduce him to the Miracle League, Dane County, but specifically about the playground. And he was very positive. He's getting me in touch with his boss, who is in Detroit. I don't know the Amazon structure, but he felt like this is something they could look into without making any commitment.
So hearing that we can direct Cameron to look into different funding sources for that potential pledge for the playgrounds.
yeah, I would add, this is Heidi, we also have Park Development Fund. I'm sure Cameron will look at, the various possibilities, and also our, regular budget process. We could determine where those funds would come from at that time. That's not that far away, looking at our capital projects. And then the other thing that we talked about at committee a lot was, honoring the work of the community in the original Dream Park, and keeping those the boards with the donors to really recognize how the community came together to make that playground happen at Bakken Park, and even the details of incorporating kind of the little castle rooftops in the small age play area, kind of pays homage to that legacy of, the community coming together to build that park at Bakken.
Rick, do you have a comment?
Just process-wise, so this tonight is just a presentation, right? So yeah, the staff direction is fine. I think just given the limited time frame, we'd probably want a decision at the next meeting or very soon thereafter. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if we might need, I don't know if we're gonna need an agreement, but we might need to like just something in writing, sort of formalizing the relationship between the village and Miracle League.
Are there other things that the village board can do to help you with your fundraising campaign? I know that sometimes resolutions can be very helpful. July is Disability Pride Month. We've done resolutions for that before as well.
Yeah.
Are there, I know Heidi and I collaborate on that, and I'm sure we can bring Sean into it and provide, bring that back to the board if that's, additional support beyond financial that we could offer at this point.
Yeah, that would be a great help. During my mission of the first field I started, I just recognized all these programs for disabilities in the county that I didn't necessarily meet with or talked about the Miracle League, and now those are people that I'll be going out as a missionary, talking to them about the Miracle League playground, for sure.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to mention is that Kyla works for a distributor of a company called Landscape Structures out of Minneapolis, and they have built about 150 of these parks adjacent to Miracle Leagues, and so their experience in building, fully accessible playgrounds is very good.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
I just have a follow-up question. Have you guys reached out to Dane County at all about a potential commitment?
No.
Okay. I guess with your permission, I would like, as part of my efforts is reaching out to them and seeing if they would be willing to either match or do any type of commitment towards a park like this.
I never knew where to go in Dane County, so maybe you can help me.
Gotta know a couple people.
Okay.
Can I just add one more? So I am all for this. I'm very excited about it. I am a little concerned about parking because I've worked concessions during games and I know how busy it gets.
Yeah.
And so, obviously families are going to stay longer, right? So they're not going to just stay for the game and leave. And so I think we need to, in conjunction with this, maybe have a parking conversation. And yeah, so that's my one caveat.
Yeah. Even with the addition of parking along Clark Street, that eased us. We have our volunteers all park over there, but the Bakken Park parking lot still fills.
So assuming staff have the direction they need to move forward, okay, as best we can at this point. All right. Look forward to seeing this on future agenda items.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
All right, we do have another discuss and consider the Dinks and Drinks dates at Bakken Park pickleball courts.
I would just add that we do have a pickleball advisory committee. The pickleball community in Cottage Grove is very active, and they help advise us on events, and we did have one of these events last year, and it was very successful. People brought food to share and got to play against other players that they hadn't before, and I guess it was a very good social experience for the pickleballers of Cottage Grove. So they're looking to kind of expand it this year.
Yeah, I attended one as well. Heidi, I missed you at the one you were at, but yeah, I think it's a great event. It's again, we got a lot of support here. So I would make a motion to approve suspending the alcohol consumption ordinance in Bachman Park for the Dinks and Drinks events on the 5 dates listed in the packet.
I'll second.
Our motion by Pete, second by Chris. Any more discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Anything else from Parks, Rec, and Forestry?
I have a question. Strauss Park, you just put an AED in.
Yep.
There's a big line of dirt. Is that going to be fixed anytime soon?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add to put a plug in that baseball and softball starting, and if you know anyone that would like to be an ump, you can direct them to Sean. And also we have drop-in in-person fitness classes now also. So that's like a kind of a new perk that you can pay $5 drop-in, $8 for the work dance fitness classes. So that's a good opportunity for people that don't want to sign up for a whole session or just want to participate occasionally. So a couple, I think, exciting things to highlight from Sean's report that he gave the committee. Otherwise, we'll meet again the fourth Thursday of May.
All right, moving on to Cottage Grove Fire District Commission. Heidi, Renee, or Pete?
I don't mind jumping in. We met on Monday, April 28th. This was the last meeting that we were chair, and then it rotates back to the town to be chairperson. And so I'll be vice chair, and Renee stepped forward to be secretary. We did previously pass the change in the required number of fire inspections. So we're still waiting on Pleasant Springs to talk about that. We also talked about lighting on the flagpole because they ended up changing lights with LED lights, and we're not going to change and go with a different like solar lighting structure at this time. And then we'll be meeting the day after Memorial Day because our fourth Monday is Memorial Day in May.
Any questions for fire? All right, moving on, Deer Grove EMS Commission, Peter, Paula.
I go ahead. We met on April 24th. We kicked the meeting off with a pinning ceremony for 3 new full-timers, Emily, Easton, and Elizabeth. We approved the minutes from our March meeting. We approved March financials, March bills, reviewed the March write-offs, and aging accounts, approved those as well. The Chief's report, Deer Grove was awarded the Coverdell Stroke Records Complete Award, which was kind of cool. Recruitment, Chief is working to fill the open lieutenant position, hoping to fill that within. Had 3 really nice correspondences to the board. One was a volunteer member that was moving back to New York, thanking for his service or his opportunity to serve and what he had learned. We got a note from Matt thanking the Deer Grove EMS for the CPR training that was done for village staff. And then there was a letter from the son-in-law of a patient, a cardiac patient, thanking for the quality of care. We reviewed the draft of the Johnson Block financial audit report. There were no major issues, and that will come to be approved next meeting. And appointed the subcommittee for collective bargaining with the local 311, which will be Paula, Carrie Hewitt, and Christy Williams. Let's see. And then the next meeting, we'll have the election for the chairperson, check signer. We elected for chairperson, check signer, and we'll do the final budget audit approval. And then we close. That was it.
Can I add? So just a kind of a note on the financial audit. They have a healthy balance of 29% in their fund balance, and run fees continue to be healthy as well. One of the interesting things that was brought up was Medicaid reimbursement. So when a Medicaid patient refuses transport, we don't receive any reimbursement from Medicaid because EMS is classified under DOT. There's actually legislation being introduced right now about that, to hopefully do something about that, but that's interesting. And then one thing of note that I sent along in the packet that Chief handed out a paper copy of was call volume by location. So you all had that in your packet. And just, a note that obviously the Village of Cottage Grove is the biggest user of EMS. But I think the numbers are trending in such a way that I think the timeline from the, study back in 2022, I believe it was, of when we need to house a second ambulance in Cottage Grove is going to be quicker than we originally anticipated. I know Matt's shaking his head a little bit. And so I think that's a conversation we're gonna wanna start having at the board level. I'm especially concerned when Amazon opens, because a second ambulance response time from Deerfield to Amazon is going to be more than 10 minutes. And for a cardiac event, that's a concern. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that we might start talking at the board level about what that looks like to have a second ambulance out of Cottage Grove alone, so.
At the commission level, you'll talk about it, you mean?
Yes, but I think, yes, but it's.
But it's coming.
The study, from 2022 did recommend that the village look at funding the full cost of some of those things. So I think more of it's going to fall in our lap, being the biggest user. So it might be a conversation that we also have just as a board, because we are, and will continue to have most of the calls in the district.
Cameron, do you want to say?
And that full cost wasn't for a second ambulance, it was for a second location, like a substation, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if I may, I agree with Matt. That's exactly what it said. And that the full commission and your partners are prepared to pay for the additional coverage necessary to provide for the village under the premise of, if it's good for one partner, it's good for the district. So, keeping resources available in Cottage Grove and having ample resources helps the whole district, not just Cottage Grove.
All right. Anything else for EMS? Thanks for your comment, Eric, too. Moving on to reports from village officers. Rick, the village attorney.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Moving on to me, the village president. I've discussed and considered the committee appointments for the 2025 vacancies. So there are documents linked in the agenda. So one is a memo, and the second is the recommendation. So I did some self-reflection, went back and looked and rewatched the video and made a lot of changes to better reflect concerns and comments brought by other trustees. And so that is what is outlined in the memo and then I think reflected in the committee appointments. Go ahead, Chris.
I'll make a motion to approve the committee appointments as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Heidi will second.
All right, any more discussion? Right, there's a motion by Chris, a second by Heidi. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
I didn't hear anything from Renee or Paula.
Aye. Sorry.
All right, so moving on to Assistant Administrator, Finance Director, discuss and consider the budget amendments, and then you have a presentation and also a timeline for us to consider. And before I forget, the highlighted is potential timeline, correct? I just want to make a note so that we are not locked into those dates before you start.
All right. So, thank you, Cindy. Had to make sure that I was not Matt. So I am Cameron, presenting the 2025 budget amendment. Really, this is to summarize organizational change after JJ's departure, our decision not to fill the deputy administrator position, and then replace it with a comptroller. The overall budget effect of this is actually a $37,800 cost savings to the village. So this is just I brought this forward, or I felt the need to bring it forward to reallocate the salary and benefit lines as they will be actually reflected for that change. As I do mention in my memo, just given the timing of this, we were in the process of recruiting that position. It just wasn't, the actual amounts weren't reflected in the budget. So I have a recommendation to approve the budget amendment as presented, and happy to answer any questions.
I just want to, I had mentioned this when I met with you and Matt earlier. It would be really helpful for those of us that don't have all the codes memorized on the left-hand side of what department goes along with it.
Yeah, so one of the things that was brought up is kind of adding the fund. And what I mean by fund, the Fund 100 would be our general fund. In this case, 405 would be TID 5, 508 would be TID 8, 509 would be TID 9, and 510 would be TID 10, as well as department. So the first department that we have listed here is the 51410, which is the administration department. The second department being the 51520, being finance and professional services. So bringing kind of in future budget amendments, making sure that there's those extra notes included to kind of have a better understanding of the budget amendment.
Any other comments, questions, concerns for Cameron on this item?
I would move approval of the amended budget.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion by Paula, second by Pete. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Transparency portal and discuss feedback for Cameron.
All right, so this is nearing the end of a somewhat long journey. So last year, I had, around the August timeframe, I had mentioned to the board of a opportunity for a software to live out on our website to help with the transparency of the financial village, information of the village. So while we have an annual audit that summarizes our annual information and quarterly updates, the next of which will be at the next board meeting, what is there a way to have residents have as real time as financial feasible information about the village's financial position? So through that process, through ClearGov, I had brought a solution called ClearGov that integrates with our finance software. This software would be updated once a month. We do our month-end close procedures. We would upload the most recent financial information, and residents would be able to track kind of expenditures and revenue by each fund of the village. Through this process, I learned a lot of different things, and I had to take a step back too and remember not everybody lives and breathes local government finances. So part of the challenge in here was making sure the information is digestible as possible. And so really there's probably going to be at least some education or initial education that could be a public information session, along with maybe a couple videos posted on our website on how to navigate this. So what I show before you tonight is where the product sits today. There's a lot of things we can add to this. There's a lot of things we can take away depending on what level of information that the village board wants to put out, but not necessarily as a way to be less transparent, but to make sure that it doesn't become overwhelming and deter residents from the intention of the site. So some of this stuff is coming through stock kind of forms where, you know, in general, this is what people who have used this product have had outlined. So the demographic snapshot, you'll have our current population, data coming through the American Community Survey related to medium equalized home, not assessed. Again, there's our first part where the communicating, you know, how village residents are taxed, as well as median household income. It kind of further goes, again, we're still in this overview tab from a financial overview perspective. So this right now lists out the current budgeted revenues per capita on both the revenues and expenses in the general fund. And this is where I think having currently the general fund is set as the default view for this because this is our general operating fund for our revenues and expenditures. However, should a resident be interested to, and this is where some of the education could play, all funds are available for review. So if I wanted to look and see, you know, what has the village got going on from a debt service perspective, all I have to do is toggle through each of this drop down. But again, because most of the decisions here that the village board is making is on the general fund, I had that as the default. as again, I had mentioned a little bit earlier, if I had all funds combined, this information is useless for everybody. It shows an aggregate amount, including utilities, including debt service, including capital projects. This information is, even from a financial professional, hard to digest at its face. This, as I had mentioned, the overview page is very customizable. So I kind of, at a high level, duplicated something we already have in some of our budget documents, you know, kind of talking about where is the 2024 taxes going from a percentage perspective. What I want to avoid here is duplication. So I want to make sure we're being very meaningful about what is being presented on this overview page and we're not duplicating it in several places. Additionally, we want to make sure that this information is easy to update and easy to understand. So every year we're presenting things in a similar way. So there's some comparability so residents can understand, you know, what they're kind of looking at. What now each of these individual tabs will do is they'll go into in further detail on, you know, what are revenues made up of. Again, the default here is the general fund. And you can see just clear as day in the graph, 68.2% is taxes. Okay, well, what are taxes made up of? And it lists out the different accounts. Currently, this is set up because there's no 2025 actual data in here. It's set up to show by default what the budget was. So this is a powerful tool leading up to the public hearing and such that this could be available as a maybe an easy digestible budget instead of looking at a 109-page PDF document in a village board agenda. So just a way to try to make things more accessible for our residents. It was recommended that we load 5 years worth of information. So we have gone back and we have mapped and grouped and ensured that we have up 5 years worth of financial information available. Expenditures, same concept as revenues. Should be no surprise, 52.6% is public safety. Public safety, you know, wanting a little bit more of a breakdown of what public safety, very easy to dive in to see each bucket, what the village is spending on, and then again, further detail, you know, as you can kind of dive down. This is for somebody who's a nerd and loves numbers, I could spend hours looking at. But again, making sure that, you know, from an overview perspective and high level, that we are having the information that's most digestible for an everyday resident to be like, okay, I want to find this information. Somebody should be able to do that with either a video or instructions on how to from a high level. Now, this is more Aaron's realm than it is my realm. Again, a lot of this stuff is surveyed independently. So there's some household information in the current stock of the website. So it kind of talks about different family dynamics. So 62% of Cottage Grove household are family households, 68% married couples, 12% single, 14% senior. Information that's good at a high level from a contextualized from a budget perspective. But this is where we're kind of going to the line as how much information is too much information, and would our residents find this information valuable? The next chart, kind of by a stock perspective, there's kind of what is the economic makeup of the village? So again, we kind of regurgitates that 132,000 median income, again, 75% higher than the state average. Why we'd ever qualify for any grant funding unless we try really, really hard. And income's not a component. But kind of just really lays out where the economics of the village is. Lastly, kind of a dynamic about what the state average is from a house value distribution. Shows the percentage, and I apologize the way that this is going to cut off on my screen, but you know, this shows 23% of homeowners rent compared to 77% own, which rental is down compared to the state average when you're looking at other communities. Again, all of this is automatically fed into our system through the various agencies that collect this information on the ClearGov's behalf. And the last one, just because debt is kind of a cornerstone to how the village finances projects. This is where, again, maybe a quick video about what this tab is and what to find here. So the village has, two different types of debt, as this board's aware. The debt service fund, which is a governmental fund and not a utility fund, would issues GO debt. This is where it gets a little tricky, where by having the debt service fund by default here, it's not necessarily showing the debt in its entirety. So when I toggled and did all funds, it now showed what was the outstanding debt as of the end of 2024. So we can see that there's 89.7% relates to general obligation, 10.3% relates to revenue bonds. Not only that, we can see a little bit more of a makeup of what fund or what portion of our entity makes up the complexion of the debt. So we can see here 64.3% is general obligation debt, 27.3 relates to tax incremental financing districts, smaller portions for water and sewer. However, we have to remember that water and sewer also have revenue debt, so kind of having to look at both of those pieces. So high level, this is kind of what has been put together. So what I'm asking tonight is, on a demographics page, is there anything that the board is interested in seeing, interested in not seeing, and any other suggestions or things that the board might be interested in seeing on the overview page? We can do a lot from a graphs perspective, as long as we have the data for the graphs. It's something that we can publish on the overview tab, so happy to put that work in. The amount of hours that it takes to update the software every month is about 2 hours. So we've really spent a lot of time on the front end ensuring that this is a couple of clicks, making sure the financial information is good and having that information available. So it's 24 to 48 hours from when we upload the information, it becomes live. So residents would be getting financial information faster than they ever have.
Comments?
I think it's fantastic in terms of the full disclosure. My perspective would be, whatever your recommendation is kind of for the base case, I mean, we can always add to it, right? So I mean, I would hate for us to kind of debate and try to figure out, we should add this and add this. Let's start with something that you recommend as kind of a real solid base case that you can easily manage, and then we can add, because none of us have really been through anything more than you've just shown us, which what you've shown us is actually excellent. So I mean, I'm really pleased with where we're headed. So that'd be my thought.
All right, Paula?
This is amazing. I'm very excited about this. I would recommend, can we beta test it, as a board, and kind of play, because I'm not a numbers geek, and so if you need somebody that's gonna, need the videos or whatever, I'd be happy to be the guinea pig and kind of then give feedback. But I think this is great.
Thank you.
Paula's been nominated as the guinea pig.
I'll do it.
Do you have a plan for dissemination to the masses, and how you plan on rolling this out so that residents do know that this is a useful tool for them?
So my initial thought was a soft launch. So the soft launch would be a kind of a quiet soft launch. Make sure there's no issues with the website. Make sure it's easy accessible for everybody. At that point in time, we'd include it in the monthly communication out. We could pair some type of mailed communication along with the budget process. So if people want to get involved, this is a tool out there. This is how to get involved. We'd want to time that up with kind of where, making sure the budget timeline's finalized and overall kind of high-level concept. And that could be included there. And then I'd ultimately want to work with Inga just to say, what other suggestions does she have from a communication? How can we get out? It's and I know not everybody's Facebook, but it would be my thought process that when the new information was available, we would do a Facebook post or something, or saying March 2025 is available, kind of unless that's me just being nerdy about it. But ultimately, working with our communications team.
Well, some of the communication aspect is trying to educate people to sign up for news alerts on our website, because that way we can add something as a news flash, and then anyone that is signed up can get a text notification or email notification. And that goes for all of our agendas, and people can sign up for anything they would like through that. So it's just continuing educating on that. And direct to mailer does seem like the initial push out that we've gotten most reaction from.
There's a very robust project management tab where, let's say we have 2025 streets projects, and this is where we don't want to have duplication. So we have a projects page, but then this is more financial. So it has a timeline. When is the bidding? When is the project? What is cost to date? And you can subscribe for the project. So like whenever there's been a expense update or a project update, automatic get notifications. I briefly kind of went it over with Kyla, and I really like it. And it would just be that would be in my opinion, a phase 2 or something we could potentially do along with the 2026 budget, which would, really encompass, obviously sometimes you have projects that are 2 or 3 years. This would really show, okay, this was the all-in cost for X project. These are the years that it happened, and these are the stages that it happened in. And then there's also graphs that can show where the funding came from. So this was levy supported, donation supported, user fees related, very robust. You can do almost anything from a project management perspective.
So I'm assuming project management would be a select group of projects that are
It would be-
substantial, because it takes time to update. There's nothing worse than, a page or something that's not updated.
Yeah, and I would even go one step further, that they would be like highlight projects. So like maybe not even necessarily like road maintenance, but like significant, ladder truck, police station, big, larger scale projects, where residents would actually get a benefit from those updates. And change, and we live in a business where sometimes there's change orders, sometimes they're for the good, sometimes they're for the worse, and kind of, it could be a way to have that, you be a little bit more transparent, on events, they came across contamination, and being able to kind of get in front of the battle. We don't have to deal with that very often, but just trying to list an example.
Go ahead, Paula.
Does this have the ability to send like a question somewhere? Like, so if somebody's reading through and they have questions they don't understand, does it have like a chat bot feature or anything?
So it doesn't have a chat box. It does have a feature. So I have a question out to Civic Plus. We currently have a software called Archive Social. And so that currently is capturing all the chatter from Facebook and any social media where we're doing official business. My question to them is, if this sits on the village website, would that be able to capture all that data, making sure that if for some reason comments got deleted, it was at least archived somehow to make sure we're in compliance with open record. But there is comment functions for everything, including like on the project page, you could have suggestions or comments or concerns, both send anonymous or send to appropriate department head. Certainly an option. And this is where I don't want to step on the toes on our communication and the projects page, because I think we could have some duplication of effort here. But there could be, maybe not all the information is on the project page, and maybe we hone in on some very specific, like timeline, cost, and everything else is found on the project page.
Great. Other comments for Cameron?
What is the cost of this annually, this software? Just curious.
$5,000 annually. So it is. I think we're in that subscription world where there is a cost for it. I think I'd have to look at the escalation. So this is the first year of the software. I do think the budget module that ClearGov also offers is something we could get to eventually, but it is something, in my opinion, that currently the cost outweighs the benefit. Because you can do everything. You can do from capital to personnel budgeting to overall budgeting, and it can all feed in. I just don't think we're there yet. And it, again, the cost doesn't currently outweigh the features.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
This does fulfill some PSC requirements about having your data socially available. So like the water and sewer utility does pick up a share of the cost of this.
Knowing that there is a cost to the software and there's a cost to your time too, I think that is even more reason to make sure that we get it out to the public so that they know and to use it, since that is the ultimate goal. So I would be in favor of giving you direction to look into mailers or other sources of contact.
Sure.
Thanks. All right, with that, you can continue talking. And we have a discuss and consider the timeline for the 2026 prioritization and budget process. There is an PDF linked in the agenda, and again, tentative dates.
Yeah, so we just approved the committee listing. So kind of the next step here for some of the things that are highlighted in yellow are, verifying that we have a quorum. So reaching out to the committees involved and at least giving a couple dates on when things could happen. The September 2nd board meeting, this is something that we could get some direction tonight to bring forward. So September 1st is obviously Labor Day, which falls as the first Monday. Given that once we hit September, budget timeline gets pretty compact, I would recommend that the village change the village board date to be September 2nd. And then I'll work with budget review committee to get those dates kind of finalized in here. Once I'm able to work with the committees and get final dates, we would ultimately publish this to kind of the masses. And so this has been more of an internal document than it has been an external document. So if there is some desire to present this or have it in some type of a mailer, I would definitely want to work with Inga and soften up some of this to be more, decision dates. I would also, just met with MMSD or Madison Metropolitan Sewer District today. They also have decisions that affect our budget and dates. So there's certainly, or not our budget, but ultimately what our residents pay through service user fees. So if we would do any type of mailing out to residents, I would want to try to get a good handle on what are all the players, Dane County, Monona Grove, Sun Prairie School District for those involved, and Madison Technical College, if that's okay, or if that's the general direction.
Sorry, Cindy, one other date in addition that the board could consider tonight, in addition to the September 2nd, is the workshop tentative date of October 27th, because that kind of plays in then to the notice for public hearing and when the public hearing could be held. And it's far enough in advance that, hopefully the board could align on that, or, we could have some flexibility there on that date. But that week is generally sometime that week is, I think, critical.
And we do get, so the 27th is the day of joint fire. My recommendation would be, if possible, joint fire could either find a different date or a different time. We get into a problem if even we move this a couple days, we can't have our public hearing date until the first meeting in December. What that actually means is, even if I get public feedback, it's almost impossible to implement any change into the budget prior to tax bill. So that October 27th date is really, this is like as late as I would feel comfortable going, given that the newspaper dates continue to get pushed earlier and earlier when we have to get our public hearing information in.
Okay. So the first one is the moving of the village board meeting from a holiday to Tuesday, September 2nd, which is also the first day of school. Yes.
And then,
If the village board wants to take a look at your calendars and consider that.
I'm good with September 2nd.
I am. Heidi, how about you?
Yep, that works for me in
Okay.
September.
Is the second one the October 27th, the village board workshop date for this board to consider?
What is the approximate time frame? You know, like, could we do joint fire at 5:30 and then this at 6:30, or do we need to block off more time?
So these meetings typically are at 5:30.
Okay.
yeah,
Right, the
yeah,
budget meetings.
it depends on what the board is comfortable. These are meetings that are typically a little bit longer. So I would lean to the two members who are on joint fire, or three.
I don't mind staying up late.
I don't either. I'd rather just keep the dates and do 5:30 for joint fire if we can.
We do 6:30 here.
And do 6:30 here, if that works.
Perfect.
And then feedback you wanted on timeline and communicating.
Yeah, just kind of a general feeling, you know, is this something that we would lump into maybe the transparency communication and via physical form? And then ultimately, I would lean somewhat heavily on Inga from a, how would this final document look and feel from an external perspective instead of an internal facing document?
I love written words, but this is too wordy for me, and I think if you're gonna give it out to residents, an actual timeline or infographic is helpful. I think some of this isn't necessarily information that everybody needs to know, but I think the big picture to be communicated would be helpful. Comments from other board members? Paula?
If you do a communication, launching the software too, I mean, maybe that's, you plant the seed, or there's a QR code or something that goes on there that also links to this. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think too, I would add the village newsletter. I think that's first and foremost for, you know, for updates similar to this, you know, please sign up for this. But I'll always defer to the experts. I'll let Inga and Matt lean on the communication side.
Linking me to an expert on that is nice of you, Cameron. But I do like the idea of an infographic, something something more basic. This is too much inside baseball, I would say, for the just unnecessary for most people. But a condensed version of this that hits on the high points on when decisions are happening.
All right. Any more?
I just had a question about, like, a direct mailer is expensive, and I think it is obviously the best way to reach every household. But did we have something budgeted for communication on that item? Just, I mean, it's a lot to send to every house.
Yeah, there's a couple buckets to pull from related to communication. I think ultimately, maybe even next board meeting, we could present, you know, high level cost of what would be, and just kind of general consensus from the board to, you know, keep moving.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Any more? Otherwise, this is a discuss and consider for the timeline.
Timeline as presented.
I'll second.
And then just the caveat that budget review dates to be finalized and staff direction.
Yes.
All of that.
I'll amend that motion to include that.
All right, there's a motion by Paula and a second by Pete. All right, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Number 11, communication and miscellaneous business. First up is consider the approval of vouchers. Bills list is linked in the agenda.
I would move approval of the vouchers as presented.
I had a question. Well, we can do second first.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Was that a second or?
Well, I'll second, and then I'll
Okay.
ask my question.
Well, there's, okay, motion by Paula, second by Peter. Any more discussion?
So we use Rick and Larry. Actually, Brennison's in there for $1,000. I just wondering what that was for.
So we typically, if there's a conflict of interest, and Rick's sitting right there. So if there's a conflict of interest in a certain matter, we would direct that to Axley. And Axley primarily handles our collective bargaining negotiation and personnel matters.
Okay. That's fine, makes sense. The other question is the Civic Plus, so that
Yes.
the website, so that they cover our website, and this ClearGov is part of that?
Nope. So the website is made up of a couple pieces here. So the last 3 items on the Civic Plus invoice is really the website portion of it, and then the other 2 portions of it, and Sean maybe has a little bit more information on it, is called Audio Eye.
Mm-hmm.
It's an accessibility portion of our website. So there's a portion that's allocated to the actual Civic Rec portal, sub-portal, and then just the overall website in general.
So this is the annual cost of hosting our website.
Yep, and then I'm just trying to think. And then there is a separate Civic. So earlier, I believe in January, we were invoiced for Civic Rec, the portal, which is also served through Civic Plus.
Okay.
And as confused as you are right now, I'm going to, in the budget process, these pieces are kind of all over the place. I'm going to have a better summary of what they have for that service.
Because it's under 3 GLs, but I mean, I don't want to belittle the point. It was an annual renewal of the website. It'd be great if you had other information.
Yep. So water and sewer share a cost. So we always kind of take a look back. If water and sewer were their own entity,
Okay, got it.
we want to make sure we recoup those costs.
Totally.
Oh no, great questions.
Totally get it. And then the other question I had is Johnson Block, that's our IT support. That's $10,000, so that's $300 a calendar day. That's just, seems like a lot.
I'm going to tell you
What's driving that?
I'm going to tell you it's so one and I've given that feedback. We do get an aggregate bill, but that aggregate bill also includes our licenses. So like our firewall licenses and subscriptions that support our software. I can tell you for the amount of hours that we use that service, it could be double that and still be reasonable from a overall cost perspective. So about half of the bill, about 45% relates to subscription, and
Monthly, or is that an annual renewal?
These are monthly. So
Okay, I guess
so
I don't remember seeing a bill for 10,000 from Johnson Block.
it would be. So one of the things that are in here is it's $9,987. It looks like there's something else included in that for that specific month, but I can get more information.
Okay. It'd be good to break it out. I mean, because if it's really $10,000 a month, we should just hire an IT person. It's $120,000 a year, right?
I'll strongly disagree with that. The first year that we had Johnson Block, we almost had 4,000 hours of support.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to have somebody that has a network security background, a help ticket background. You're talking about having to hire somebody or multiple people with very unique backgrounds.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we evaluate, similar with legal services and everything. When do we get to that point where it just makes to pay somebody plus benefits?
It'd be great to see this broken out so that this is the support hours and then this is the renewals and subscriptions, so we can kind of have visibility on what are we actually paying for that support feature, right?
So we will have a review of contractors in the fall, and so maybe that's feedback you can give them or you can bring to us during that.
And we do have a fixed amount for our managed service, so we could use them 10,000 hours, and it would be the same cost each month. So their charge structure is based off of users. Okay. So I'll have that number very, very quickly and very easily once I can dive into it.
Okay. I just had 2 other quick ones.
Yep.
So there was this organizational development consult. So Brindle Waters psych assessment for $1,500. Well, what was that?
When you have to onboard police officers, they go through it more.
Enough. I got it.
Yep.
I got it. Okay. And then the last question is Verity Environmental Technology. So I'm assuming that's a police department charge as well for $5,136. Okay.
That is, and actually that'll come back. We have a grant that'll reimburse on that.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Okay, thank you.
Good questions.
All right, any more questions from other board members? Okay. Otherwise, there is a motion and a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence. We did receive 3 emails, one from CI Pediatric Therapy Centers, another from Miss Lexi, who is a special ed teacher at Cottage Grove School, and then one from Katie Morrow, who is a disability advocate. All 3 were in favor of the Bakken Park project. I think the village board also received several emails communicating concerns about intersection safety, and I think that those will eventually be addressed. I know the staff has discussions about it, but they'll also probably come up at committee agendas moving forward. Anyone else have other correspondence? Okay. Upcoming community events. There is a Memorial Day ceremony at the town hall, which will be the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend at 10 a.m. But other community events that others know about.
There's a fundraiser thing at Culver's for the Cottage Grove PTO equivalent.
Schools and Family Organization.
Yes. Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
There's an event on Saturday with the Lions car care event to benefit the Miracle League.
There's actually a blood drive this Wednesday from 1 to 6 p.m. at MSB, so please stop by.
Busy time of year for everyone. All right, future agenda items. I think we had a list going. Is there anything else that the board would like to add?
Baker Tilly will be here to present the financial statements, Amanda Blomberg. I will let the utility, because the utility commission doesn't get a separate presentation, I will at least invite them to view virtually. Kind of as discussed, I'll bring a recommendation funding for the Miracle League as well as the budget mailer. So I got 3 items.
All right, moving on to items 12 and 13. There are 2 closed sessions on this agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to Rick to give an overview.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just handle both of these, and then if the board wants to go into closed session, there could be a motion. So I'll cover number 13 first. So about a month ago, we had a meeting about a lease extension for New Tech at the 123 East Cottage Grove Road building, which the village owns. We have an executed lease, but New Tech has asked for a couple of amendments to that lease after executing it. So basically, the closed session would be for talking about their proposed amendments to remove the security deposit and allow them to assign their rights under the lease without village approval. The other closed session item or potential closed session item would be for potential property acquisition in TID 9. So this is more or less getting direction from the board regarding a property acquisition strategy moving forward in TID 9. I think it's been a while since we've sort of had an update on that, and we just want to make sure that we're still following the board's direction on that. Maybe Matt, or I know Kyle and Tom are here too, they can maybe provide more information, but so that's the basic summary of it. So if you feel like a closed session is required to discuss those in more detail, a motion would be appropriate.
If the board feels we should go into a closed session.
I would move that we go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E. Do I need to go into more detail?
You got to read the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, a motion by Paula, a second by Peter. This is a roll call vote.
Benzo,
Here.
Dahl,
Aye.
Cal Nelson,
Aye.
Murphy,
Aye.
Severson,
Aye.
and Stoa.
Yes.
We can just make one motion to go into, or do you have to do the
Go
second?
ahead, do that one.
I think we're okay with the one. 'Cause the purpose was for
It's
12 and 13, correct? Yeah.
I'll go to the link then that